On today's podcast episode, I interviewed Ricardo, who is the business development leader for Latin America. We chatted about the intricacies of the different countries within South and Central America and how managing through a distribution channel isn't always the easiest thing. And he gave us a few of his tips to successfully manage an international team. Ricardo, tell us a bit about how you started your career and how you got to where you are today.
Yes, sure. I was born, raised, and educated back in Mexico City. And I started my career basically in telecommunications in the cellular world. And then working for a US based company that was based in Chicago, they gave me the opportunity to immigrate into the States back in 2009. So since then, I've been living in Maryland, in East Coast, and I've been working mainly in telecommunications.
So tell us, you immigrated from Mexico to the US. What were some of the challenges that you experienced coming from a different country?
Well, first of all, I was lucky because I went to a bilingual school back in Mexico, so the language is not really a challenge. But because I moved with my wife and my kids at the time, they were really young. They were 4 and 5 years old. Obviously, the language was a challenge. Also, the cultural differences, more of a do your own, all that kind of stuff. Try to find a house and the mortgage and all that stuff. Trying to get a loan, all that kind of situations that when I was back in Mexico, I didn't have to go through because my house was built, was paid, and all that. So I didn't have all those challenges or needs at that point. But it was not really that difficult. I mean, we figured it out fairly quickly. And for the kids, it's not really difficult to understand that they're really like little sponges, and they absorb and they learn, and that's where they are right now. And they're really young adults almost trying to get out of college soon. That's where we are.
So I think that a lot of times people disregard the impact of moving from one country to another and how you have to adapt and learn. And so you're trying to learn new culture and you're also stepping into a new role within your organization. So tell us, in the past 10 years or so, what kind of changes have you seen within the telecom industry?
That's a good question. When I was in the cellular world, it was coming from the booming in the early 2000s to basically a really down in the hill because mainly of a pressure in pricing that it was forced by the Chinese vendors. Chinese vendors came into the world and they literally upside down and wrecked the industry because they were basically outbidding everybody. It was it was not necessarily dumping because I don't want to say something that has been proved, but it was kind of, they were basically uh, very eager to win, and they were very aggressive with pricing with very steep discounts, 40, 50% of the rest of the competition was offering. So they certainly upside down the industry. So like everything, people, industry, they needed to reinvent themselves. So that's what I did, and the industry as well. We moved more towards services, professional services, and softwares and all that. So that put a little bit more pushback on the Chinese because they were at a time when they were really copying everything, and that helps for a few years. And then I had the opportunity to make a jump into the space and defense, still within telecommunication, but it is more tactical, more of a government to government, and that has been excellent for my career, and of course for more learning on something that I didn't have in my resume.
So when you think about your experience in the telecom industry and some of those challenges that you faced, how did that set you up for success in what you're doing today?
Uh, well, definitely because I'm a sales guy, first and foremost. So my interest is always about the customers, helping people, doing what I love, and money. So that drives you a lot. So in that ideas that I was telling you about reinventing yourselves by trying to sell software, and more of a complex solution where you really need to talk to different stakeholders or decision makers, that's really what helping me to set me apart and also to set the rest of the industry apart, because you need to talk with other people, not only the end user, but also all the million people in making the decisions and people that you can influence. So that really helped me to be where I am right now.
Yeah, I think a lot of times so many times people hire only people who've worked in that industry, right? They have their blinders on. They're like, oh no, I need you to have industry expertise. I need you to have this or do that. And what happens for us, I think it impacts us as leaders, as organizations, because we don't get this different perspective, right? Like we don't get people who think differently than us, who have different experience, and it impacts our sales in a negative way.
Agree, agree. And besides what I just told you, it is of course the preparation that you can receive or not from the company you're working on, and the other preparation that you can really set or get for yourself. In my case, I was, blessed to be able to be in a financial position that I was in capacity to pay for a training in different really good schools at Stanford. So I went there for 10 days and they gave me a lot of preparation for executives, and we were really looking at different themes, and one of them was, competing in a very congested and very price sensitive arena, and how can you overcome not being the cheaper, but on the contrary be probably the most expensive but providing value. So all that kind of training and preparation helped me also as well to be where I am right now.
That's good. Investing in yourself. You can never
Correct.
invest too much in yourself. Throughout my career, I've invested tons, thousands and thousands of dollars in my own professional development, and I can see, the return on that investment in me. So, when you think about your current team, tell us a little bit more about how your sales team is structured.
Right now the team is basically about managers who are responsible for a territory. In my current role, I'm responsible for Latin America. So we're talking about 33 countries, different cultures, different languages, different ways of doing business. Some of them are not really even considered Latin people. So the cultural is really obvious, and you really need to work with that. And not only among your customers, also among your peers and people you work with. So those members of my team, they manage the territory, and within their territory, they have field service engineer who lives in different countries within the region, and they have also consultants and distributors and representatives, people that belong to companies that are really having an agreement with the company that I work for, and they help us to sell, to position, to monitor the program or the project, and so forth. That's how the organization right now is set.
Different companies that are, international tend to structure their team in different ways. And it sounds like what has worked for you is having somebody who's a local expert, if you will, in that region, manage that particular region, and then have channel reps that are out there. Why did you decide, or I'm not sure if it was your decision or your predecessors, like why have you guys decided to set things up in that way?
No, it's an excellent question. Basically, it has nothing to do with me or even my decision. When I joined the company almost 6 years ago, more than 6 years ago, this organization that I explained to you was already defined,
Mm.
even way before my time. So you need to adapt, and slowly start pointing about differences and where we can try to do better, especially because the competition is also trying to, you know, separate from yourself and try to be better and provide better value. And always in sales, and when you are responsible for a territory, it is always the customers are going to be asking for local people, local support, local everything. So in the organization that I explained to you, it poses a challenge because the company doesn't really have offices in country. It's only through the representation or the representatives or distributors how we really do the business. And you need to work through the legal, hurdles and hoops to try to overcome that. But of course, and try to offer the value, because the customer is always looking at some other alternatives, and they're going to be comparing you against the competition. Competition will be the same. So I mean, it, going back to your question, it's not really my decision. It's basically being, adapt to that, but also within my growth, try to offer some suggestions about how we can improve, and probably offer or open a few offices here and there. Like in my case, we have an office in Brazil, and we're looking to try to see if we can open another ones in some other places of the territory.
So really, so for you, it was kind of like, well, this is the platter that you're dealt, and so you had to really adapt and figure out how to make it work for you and equip each person in this very different cultural in these different cultural aspects, how they can go to market. And I think sometimes people think, oh, it's just South America, it's Central America, it's all the same. And that would be like somebody being like, "Oh, it's just the United States. It's all the same." No, Texas, California, Washington D.C. Like we're like different countries, if you will.
You're totally correct, because the cookie cutter, or you just one size fits it all, is not really applicable in this instance. You have people like Brazil, which is a huge country, the size of the United States, and they don't consider themselves Latin. They don't speak Spanish. They barely speak English. So you need to adapt. You need to learn the language, speak with them. You may not be perfect, but in that way you can break the ice and start breaking into the cultural differences, right? And they consider more themselves European, because the links or the attachments with Portugal and the rest of Europe. So they also have a different mindset. So you need to work with that and start answering questions like, why you're not local. Do you think we can have a local team? Which we do. We prefer to speak with Portuguese speaking people, and so forth. And that's only Brazil. The northeast coast of South America specifically is basically full of English speaking countries. They're really small, but still you need to approach them. You need to see if you can sell them something. And again, the differences in culture and in languages. The Caribbean is also no difference. There's only a few countries that speak Spanish, the rest speak English or French. So you need to deal with that. So as you can really see, it is really a Babel tower of things. It's not only the language, it is the cultural way and the way of doing business. And sometimes, many times, when you work with specific companies, uh, there's always the cookie cutter, or the one size fits it all, and it's not like that. And you need to work through that. And most of the time, it's uphill battle, but you always figure it out.
So with such a culturally diverse sales force that you're managing, how do you ensure that they're getting the training and the development that you need to get everybody upskilled?
You always have the option. Um, Many times, the company you work for, they have a specific, syllabus of different training courses that you encourage the people to take. They also give you the option to try to pay, whether it's 100% or a copay or something outside of the training classes of the company, where you can really go to schools like, as the one that I mentioned, Stanford, or you can go to any other, Columbia, Chicago University, or whatever. And they normally can do that. They normally offer things like, hey, we can pay for your master's degree or your PhD. Of course, it all depends on your specific job and description and responsibility, but most of the time they normally do that. And I do the same thing with my team. I mean, we have specific programs in the company where they can really excel, develop some traits and skills, and I always encourage them to get into that, or I really suggest them to get, or I just simply throw their name in the hat and they need to take it, right? And that's how you do it.
And so when you think about like the drive or the motivation, because so some people lean into training and development and some people don't. Some people have that I want to be better than I was yesterday, or I want to be better than the number one salesperson, right? Like, so each human, I would say we all have different types of motivation, different types of drive. How do you tap into that for each person on your team? And how do you really encourage them to be more driven?
It all depends on the person. Every person has a different traits and skills, and preparation too. In my business, it's really important the technical knowledge and the understanding. So clearly, if you have an engineering background, it will be easier for you to understand it. You don't necessarily need to be an expert. It all depends again on the person. So one member of my team focused his success a lot on the technical sale, okay, or the technical side of the sale, which means that he really has invested a lot of time and money and effort in trying to learn everything about a system and every piece of the elements of the network so he can clearly explain to the customers and all the end users how it works, how it can be configured, how it's going to, behave in certain conditions. So in that way, he's really gaining the trust of everybody because he's really the subject matter expert. So whether he talks about the brand or not, most of the time the users, new or not, they're going to reach out to him and ask for an advice. So that's very successful. I always encourage my team members to get to that point. You need to become the consultant. In my opinion, that's the paramount point that we need to reach, because if a customer pick up the phone and call you just to get an advice, doesn't necessarily mean if he's going to buy from you. In my opinion, that's the ultimate goal because you already earned their trust. Other members in my team, they focus more on the relationship side, which means that I'm understanding the need. I, of course, have some understanding of the technology, but more on the high level. But mostly my focus is what is really keeping you up at night. Let me understand exactly how you're using it, how you're behaving it, and let me know exactly what the challenges are. And in that way, I can really address them. And it will be the same thing. It's just different approaches. But that's how I really, do it with each member of my team. I really need to learn about each of them and identify their skills and, advantages, disadvantages, or weaknesses and strengths, and just improve them through the training or coaching and mentoring and all that.
That's good. That's good. So essentially just meeting each person where they are. So not saying relationship selling is better than becoming a technical advisor, or technical competence is more important than relationship, but really meeting them where they are and coaching them through whatever that specific situation is.
That is correct, because at the end of the day, in any relationship, whether it's a technical matter or not, in the relationship is needed. So you need to be prepared to talk about it. Because at the end of the day, what you really want to do is to earn the trust of the person who is reaching out to you. And in order for you to earn that trust, you need to show them that you know. And not only because you know because you're lying. No, you know with factual information, you can actually provide value. And at the end of the day, that's the ultimate goal. It takes time to develop the deep knowledge about the technical side, but also takes some other skills to develop on the other side, which is a little bit more social, more understanding, and all that. At the end of the day, it's a good complement. Each of the members of my team are really developing. I mean, more in one side than the other, but at the end of the day, towards the same goal, which is, as I mentioned to you, we need to earn the trust and we need to become the advisor. So if somebody's not really sleeping and they want to call you at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm obviously exaggerating, but they can do so. And if they do that, you know that you have achieved really something good, especially nowadays where AI is going to disrupt everything.
Yeah.
I'm always telling my team, you need to take some training, which is very basic in AI. All of them already took it. And we have some tables of discussion where we say, okay, do you really feel for your job? Yes or no? Or what do you think AI is going to help you? And the conclusion from everybody is basically, as long as we are in sales, sales is basically a person-to-person relationship. So the AI is going to be more of a tool that is going to help you tremendously, because just by having your phone and having the access to the AI, you can really get a lot of information right there. And you can apply different selling techniques like the challenger and talk to that specific person and try to start earning their trust just with that. So relationship is always important.
Yeah, and I think that, the way that I position AI for the sales teams that I work with, as I tell them, it's going to help you do your job easier. It's not going to replace you. It should not be writing all your emails or your proposals or anything like that, but let it do your research. Let it refine an email that you may have already written, but it should be an enhancement to what you're doing, not the thing you're doing.
Correct. Correct. And believe me, it works great. Okay. That's all I'm going to say. It works really, really good. Well, and still you need to be cautious because it's not perfect, but it really helps you a lot. A lot.
So when you think about this current economic situation that we're in this year, it's been a tumultuous one, right? There's been tariffs, no tariffs, import, export, this and that. I've seen different companies. Some companies are benefiting from the volatility in the market, and some companies are not. Which side of that aisle are you guys sitting on?
We always see uh, an action or a situation as an opportunity. It's not a cliche or a bumper sticker. It's a reality. As a sales guys, that's exactly what we're trained for. Identify opportunities and just jump in it. All with the tariffs and all these conflicts that are happening, clearly it is something that really helps the space and defense industry. Okay? It is sad on the one side, but on the other side, it's also helpful because, behind the space and defense industry, there's a lot of families behind that. So it is an opportunity. It is an opportunity, definitely.
So how are you having your team capitalize on this opportunity?
Well, they have to do what they do and they know very well to do, which is reaching out to customers, making phone calls, doing visits, planning demonstrations, uh, doing follow-ups on previous negotiations or deals or opportunities, and close, right? Part of the most difficult part of any deal is closing. And thankfully, the members of my team, they are being trained to do that, and they're improving every time they close. They're getting better. So that's how we are capitalizing this. We just need to be in front of the customer because whether it's a situation in a country where probably the president has been reelected and the security has been always a problem, but now that the presidency has been settled, it is now the time for the president to start trying to fix that problem. And we can be there showing not to him, but to the ministers or the secretaries, or in whatever way the government is organized, that we as a company in space and defense, we can help them and we will show them how and all that stuff. So we just need to be there. That's
That's
how to do it.
Yeah, the one of the lowest competencies when I evaluate sales teams is their closing. And I think it's a combination, right? Like one of the things I think that I can include myself in this, as sales people don't do well is follow up. It's like we just want the quick win. And sometimes people aren't ready. I had a call with somebody recently, and I've been working with the organization for a year. And I just had a meeting with all of the top decision makers, and they gave me oh yeah, we're ready to start. But it's the tenacity that got me there, right? Like if you
Right.
just stop after 3 days or even 3 months and you're not continuing to nurture that relationship. And then I think that some salespeople just don't ask for the sale. They just literally don't ask for it, right? They'll just continue talking about this or talking about that, and they never actually officially ask for that order.
No, you're right. I mean, one of the things that I always instill in my people, and I always travel around the region. So I'm always forcing or pushing them to invite me to meetings and be with them so I can really see them in action and all that. There's always one thing that I always ask them. It doesn't matter the meeting, you always need to ask for the purchase order in one way or the other. And it's not literally like that, but when do you see we're going to start doing business, or when do you see you need this quote to start? What is the process for procurement? Are you interested in starting conversations so we can get into a contract? Something like that. We always need to be asking that, and as you said, following up with the customers, that's also very important because you first need to understand the procurement process. And once you have dominated that, each piece or part of the process, then you must follow up to know exactly where they are. And if something is really blocking or holding this up, try to see how you can help. So those, I mean, at the end of the day, it's not difficult. It's just, it only requires discipline and organization and execution, of course, right? You need to follow up.
You got to do the work, right?
Yeah,
You
you
got to do
gotta
the
do the
work.
work.
So, when you think about your company in the next 5 years, where do you see yourself? Where do you see your team?
Well, definitely myself and my team, I see that growing, actually gaining more responsibilities, probably more, a bigger region or larger region or more regions or in a larger capacity within the company, probably in another position, in another business. The same for the members of my team. It's the same situation. Whether they can replace me or be in a different position, but definitely in a better position where they are right now. That's for sure.
So, how do you envision getting there? Are you going to invest in more people, more tool technology, training? What are the key things that you feel like you need to get you to that 5 year vision?
All of the above. Certainly, the first thing that we need is more people. Okay, but always in a business, you need to. It's not necessarily a chicken and the egg, but you really need to bring results first and then ask, which sounds a little bit like oxymoron, but that's the reality. You need to show that the business is there, that you can really close, you can bring it in. And although they can always ask you, why do you need all these people when you are doing it fantastic? Well, imagine if I'm doing fantastic, how much more I can do if I have what I really need, which is more people, because I need to be there, right? I mean, we already talked about that. You need to be there, you need to follow up. It will not be done by itself. You need the people. So people, tools that automate the process, like AI, it is definitely something that we are asking right now, where I am right now. So a combination of that, of people, tools, and enhancement in the product, it is always helpful. And that's how we're going to do it.
That's good. It's all the above. It's the people, it's the process, it's the tools, the technology, because one essentially flows into the other. If we have all of these fancy tools and technology, but we don't have the people who know how to use them, that doesn't help anything. And if we have all these people and they're strapped because they don't have the technology to help them move faster, then that doesn't help anything either. So really having that big strategic approach to, we have to invest equally in both. And I think the key thing that you said that some sales leaders don't realize is we have to show results so we can justify the spend. Some people are like, we can't do anymore. We need more people. And leadership is like, where's the money coming from? Right.
We need to find that opportunity or opportunities that are going to help us to bring the orders in so we can show that growth and the
Yeah.
potential, and then we can get what we want or what we need. I mean, at the end of the day, it's really simple. But as someone has said in my company recently, we just need to go back to the basic, which means do not overcomplicate it, something that is not really complicated. Let's be pragmatic, let's be simple, and just define the plan and execute. But of course, we need to have the basic things with tools and people. And that's it. The rest is just on the execution.
Tools and people. Then they focus on the execution.
Show me the money, right? Show me the money.
Show me the money. Show me the dollars.
Exactly.
So if you think back to Ricardo as a young man just getting into sales leadership, what advice would you give him?
It's a really good question. My first one is to jump immediately, quickly into the telecommunication wagon back at that time, and get immediately the MBA. I waited more than I should have, but I got it. And to just, not because it's going to guarantee anything, but it's going to give you the tools that you need to bring the solutions and be successful. I mean, a title, a degree is not because it's really necessary to get something. It's necessary in the way that it's going to give you tools and relationships. And MBAs, and very specific with MBAs, they're going to give you that. Relationships and tools. That's what I would, told myself if I had that opportunity, of course. I have it already, but, instead of waiting 7 to 8 years that I waited, probably I should have done it in 2 to 3 years, after getting out of college.
Pull the trigger, pull the trigger, get the education that you need earlier. So, because I do think that it helps, as you said, it's the relationships and the knowledge. It's not just the knowledge that you get from going to postgraduate school. It's really like the people that you meet, the connections, the way that you're able to think about and solve problems.
Correct. And having some experience is going to help you too. I totally respect all those guys that really get a master's degree of anything right after college. But in my opinion, specifically about MBAs, I think it is it's better if you have at least 2 to 3 years of experience working on something, and then you jump into, you know, investing in the MBA degree. Because in that way, you can bring some of that experience and value to the rest of the peers that most likely are going to be people who has been in their jobs for 5, 10, 15 years. So if you're a person fresh out of college, the only thing that you have to provide is just, whatever experience coming from the lab or being whatever, but it certainly is not going to be exactly a job related, experience. So, if there's something that I also suggest to myself at that point is, you're doing great by waiting a few years, but don't wait too much or too long.
So find that nice space in the middle, right? Not right
Correct.
when you get out of school, maybe, but don't wait 10 or 12 years after you're so far into your career. I think what I found is people who wait too long to get their MBA after they've been in their career, when they try to leverage it, they realize that it doesn't it's harder for them, right? Like you have this degree now and you have this experience, but your colleagues who had the degree and some experience, they're a bit further ahead of you. And so it makes it a little more difficult to bring the value to the degree, I would say.
Right. Right. Totally agree with you.
Awesome. Well, Ricardo, this has been a fantastic conversation. I thank you so much for your time, your
Likewise.
talent, and your expertise.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I
All
enjoy
right.
the time talking to you. Okay.
All
Thank
right.
you.
See you next time.
See you
Bye
next
bye.
time. Take care. Bye bye.